Welcome folks, this is another shoutcast from the forums. We have Soldans against W12W, who I believe prefers to go by the nickname of Wally, if I remember rightly from a previous TeamSpeak. Now this is a ladder game and we will be playing by gentlemen's rules. I'm just going to go straight away and spawn in here so I can cast this. With any luck everything will run smoothly. And while we wait for this to happen, what I'll do is I'll explain gentlemen's rules. The basic idea is that you don't exploit alpha bugs, i.e. when I say bugs I mean things like the fact that metal sites are not actually required at the moment. So basically gentlemen's rules require you to put metal extractors on metal sites. It doesn't give you any statistics bonuses at all, it just makes the game more interesting as though it would be played, and both players have actually spawned reasonably close to each other here with a lot of metal between them, so they'll probably start expanding towards each other and maybe we'll get some really early action in as well. Maybe some ant rushes, maybe even some bots depending on the player's build orders. Other than that, you've got, with regard to gentlemen's rules, just briefly you've got things like no amphibious tanks, one wall per defense unit, i.e. if you build a tower you can only build one wall to defend it, because there are some players out there who just wall spam and it just becomes a nightmare to actually get anywhere. Right, so both players appear to be going for 3 metal and an energy, which is the optimum build, followed preferably by a factory over here. Yes, we've got a vehicle, and over here, slightly behind, is W12. Going for a second energy, okay, before the factory, that's interesting, though it will make the second fabricator work okay. So that's all good, but as I say, getting up this early factory allows that fabricator to get out earlier, and that'll give the advantage there to Soldans in this early stage of the game. So that's all going to work nicely. Apparently the game is a little laggy, so hopefully there won't be too much. And yes, we do see a bot factory from W12. That's an interesting opener. Not often you see bot factories, so it'll be interesting to see what W12 makes with this build. Other than that, we can see Soldans just stretching out the econ, building some energy, assisting that energy in rapidly producing, and getting some of these mass sites. We'll probably see most of these mass sites claimed, and maybe even see Soldans sort of spread out back this way along the planet, although they haven't got as many mass in near vicinity of the spawn as W12, although then again their spawns are very close together. So I'm not sure whether we'll see Soldans try and take these without realising that W12 has spawned here, but that's all in good time. And as I suspected, W12 is now going to start expanding to all of these metal sites here. I highly doubt we'll see any naval units here, because all the lakes and seas are small and insignificant compared to the amount of land, so as I say, vehicles, bots, and maybe a few air units coming out later as well. Lots of fabricators here and an early ant before any skitters or form of scouting. So maybe the ant there is for defense. And then we've got 2 bot fabricators assisting on this energy right here. And even a third bot fab coming out now. Other than that, all of this energy here just sort of piling up, and as I say, expanding these metal extractors, maybe even using this ant for a little bit of flank defense right here. And here comes another fabricator indeed. So we're going to see the second factory go up indeed, yes we do. Vehicle right there. And constant metal expansion here from W12. Without the additional factories and energy though, W12 will start to fall behind on military production unless they can get up some more factories for production. Although I'm not sure the state of Soldans' economy, because with only 1 fabricator that factory is going to take quite a while to build, relatively speaking, although at the same time they have got a lot of metal sites to colonise and a lot of energy to produce to make them economically viable. In fact, that's going to go up reasonably swiftly now. And another ant going to come out as well to produce additional defence, and a lot of workers from Soldan. Other than that, we have an energy field over here from a bunch of bot fabs. Again, not much military, if any, at all from W12 at this point in time. Maybe they're just turtling up, although with a successful turtle you do kind of want a little bit of base defense. But we'll see what happens, we'll see what happens. It all depends, and I think maybe Soldans is using this energy as a sort of wall for any scouts or faster land units which might try and get into the base early on. And down here we can even see some artillery and some radar for some rear defense, which is going to be interesting to see, because maybe W12, once they've found each other's spawns, will decide to sweep down and around, at which point he'll meet with an untimely demise. Other than that, these ants are going to spread out around here to try and find the spawn location, along with probably another artillery and radar installation, with because he's being escorted by the fabricator over there, or in fact the fabricator being escorted by the ant. Which came first, the chicken or the egg? Other than that, another vehicle factory, so even more military coming out, and we've got also 2 vehicle factories here from Soldans, one producing, in fact they're both producing spinners, that one's just slightly below the build threshold, and even a 3rd vehicle factory. So now that they've got all of this metal sites and all of these energy sites, they can really start spamming out the factories with the commander. So maybe the military will actually be in the form of ants from W12 as well. Maybe the bots were just to produce those early fabricators. But as I say, we'll probably see another, yes, there it is, an artillery one there, protecting flanks, expanding to all of these metal sites as soon as possible to get that economic viability. Strangely, we aren't seeing more ants being produced on the Potter Soldans, although if you've got a lot of fabricators you can build a lot early on. In fact, those trees there are going to be quite disruptive. Not really, that was just... Anyway. But again, lots of ants spreading around now. And a bunch of spinners here, which is interesting because why bother making spinners if you don't know if the enemy is going for air yet? I mean, I can understand a group of maybe 3 or so, but before you actually know there's an air factory, there's no point in wasting on spamming them, which is why it's important to get your early intel out early, and these ants are doing exactly that for Soldans. They are going scouting around in a rather aggressive scout, actually, and they will probably see this base here. Yes, they will. In fact, just a couple of seconds. There they go. They do have intel on the metal. They do know where the spawn is, and W12 can assume it's somewhere on this side of their spawn that actually is where Soldans is based. Other than that, all of these spinners, while they're good at anti-air, they do have a capability against ground, although it is vastly weaker than it is against air. But the ant coming out to save the day, and even a point defense going up there. A laser tower to defend against any secondary ant pushes. Other than that, we do see a lot of economic build-up over here, few bits of artillery installation just to defend, even more energy going up, which is interesting considering that's on the front lines, so we'll have to wonder what happens there. All of these now producing ants, if I am not mistaken, which is going to get their military going up very rapidly indeed. And that these bots are all going to focus down on these laser towers, which is going to produce them exceedingly rapidly, providing they do still have the economy to support it, which it appears they do, which is all well and good, but providing they can still maintain that while producing all of these ants is going to be interesting to see whether that remains a possibility. All of the ants gathering forces now in Soldan's base, ready for a second push by the look of it. Maybe even coming with some fabricators. I'm not sure why, or whether they've just been set there to the build queue rally point and haven't actually been tasked with anything yet. And in fact, yes they have. They've been tasked with artillery. That is really going to start pounding away at these ants if they do not start to do something about it. Although, because they don't have actual intel on anything in Soldan's base, they don't really know what's going on. Which is why it would be important to get maybe a skitter out, or even, you know, a couple of aggressive bots to just leg across the map, and get that intel, which is so massively needed at this point in the game. This artillery will be completed in about 15, no, less than that seconds. In fact, it's just the health bar which is being deceitful again. There we go, and it is going to start shooting away at these ants. These ants are going to feel that pain unless they start to move out and do something about that artillery. Yes, they do. The spinner goes. More ants grouping up. They're going to head out. There is going to be more artillery being produced, and these ants are going to defend it, and they are going to massively outnumber W12, so this aggressive attack is going to be in vain, although they do now see that defensive/aggressive line there, so at least they can be fairly sure that Soldans is based in this region. I mean, again, you don't know, but you can be fairly sure. And because they've seen a lot of ants, they can be fairly sure they aren't going for air either. So I think at this point it would be unwise to continue building further air towers. And all of these point defences are going to smash away those ants massively with great ease. Though that artillery just out of range of that point defence, he's going to take out this ant eventually. Especially if he sits still. 3, 2, 1 and plop. There he goes. And in fact this point defence here is also under siege because of this artillery line here, which is reasonably strong actually, especially defended by these ants, especially while Soldans doesn't actually have all that much in the way of military. Again, this is what we mean by one wall per defence unit in terms of gentlemen's rules here. Taking that, these ants are just going to defend this artillery line while even more and more and more go up, which is going to make it harder and harder for W12 to make an impact on Soldans' base. Although, I think what would be a good idea now is, with all of these artillery installations up and running, maybe getting some laser towers to do that mid-range defense, because the artillery is okay against stationary targets, but it's not particularly brilliant against moving targets because that target finding is not the best right now. Artillery is more for siege and defense, rather than trying to sort of do this rather aggressive method of killing any ants that come this way. Although again, they do have these defensive ants until those are up and running, so that should be okay. And again, all of this metal is going to start getting impacted by these artillery installations, which is going to be interesting. And down here we also have an advanced vehicle factory out of the way of W12's intel and assumptions, in fact. So maybe we'll start seeing some levelers being churned out here, which are going to sweep down, up, and take a real beating into this W12's lower southern flank right here. Other than that, just scouting the rest of the planet to see where any expansion is taking place, and there doesn't appear to be any. I mean, W12 gradually just taking metal sites, expanding the econ viability over there. Which I'm surprised at this point Soldans is not producing more factories, especially with the idle commander, because they could really start mass producing, if I'm honest now. Some ants, maybe even, yeah, there we go. Oh, that's an air factory instead, okay. Interesting. Maybe getting the air scouts to see exactly what's in W12's base, to maybe form now some strategic methods as to how to get in. These ants sweeping down from the top, but again, W12 has got a reasonably defensive line surrounding the main base, consisting of these laser point defense towers and a few anti-air defense towers as well. Other than that, these ants are going to try and push out, although they aren't going to get very far because there's a bunch here defending all of these artillery installations. The artillery installation itself isn't going to do the damage against the ants, except these ants here when they get a little bit too close. Or unless these ants stop moving, at which point the artillery is going to hit. Like here, just another waste of 4 ants by the look of it. In fact, that wall there is going to go as well. I haven't yet seen artillery used like this in a Planetary Annihilation game, so this is a first for me. And I have to say, it looks really quite useful, especially when laying siege to a line of defence here, as you stockpile units ready for an assault. Although the ants don't seem to be running out too quickly, and that's because they only do have 4 vehicle factories. While at this point, W12 is making their air factory, but they do have 7 vehicle factories, and even some aggressive bots being produced from the bot factory now. So if only their rally point wasn't right out in the front, wasting units as they are built, then maybe we could see an actual accumulation of an army from W12 to make an effective push against Soldans. But as I've said in another video, it's a lot easier to take them on one by one than it is to take on a massive group. Maybe we might even see some catapults coming out from Soldans, I'm not even sure, but if they are going for this sort of turtling artillery approach, maybe we will see some catapults being utilised in this game. Whether it gets to that stage, I don't know, but these ants are now gathering in number, and there don't seem to be too many laser point defence towers remaining defending the majority of W12's base. Actually, I spoke too soon, they're going up as we speak. But there's also an artillery line here, so maybe the T2 levelers are, and shellers indeed, are also going to be of great help when tackling this line. We've also got 2 levelers out already, and the third almost coming out in a few seconds. We've also, as I say, we've got some hummingbirds here just to claim ownership over the skies, especially if the bombers are being produced, although they don't know if the bombers are being produced, but again, it's just a good way of defense, because at this point you can realize if your opponent isn't getting anywhere with their land assault, they are going to change to a different modality. So getting this air is rather insightful of Soldans in terms of defending against a future air push, which is inevitable from W12 if their land assault is not working. And here comes the bomber, and is going to meet with an untimely demise instantly, in fact, because these ants do actually manage to shoot down air units. I'm not sure whether that's going to be a feature in the final build of the game, but it is quite a useful one at this point of the game, because it means you don't really need to use spinners at all. And again, this artillery is just going to make this push almost impossible, especially with single ant pushes. It doesn't make any sense to me why you're only getting 1 ant at a time going across. And you know, 1 scamper as well. It's not going to do any lasting damage. And then we can see the secondary base going up over here for maybe even a back assault into W12. And in fact, the commander's legging it away to try and build something. If he does meet over here with some of this expansion, he is going to find himself in a bit of a pickle, because it'll be very easy for some of these ants, and if bombers are starting to be produced, for them to relocate and swoop down to this commander here. I'm not sure whether W12 has given up on their original base and have just got queued up a bunch of ants to keep the impression that the base is still the main base here. But again, that's yet to be decided. With this commander going down here, probably to these metal spots here, yes it is indeed. That is a large, more open base than their original, because their original did have 1 region covered by this body of water here, although this one is completely open on all sides. And you know, the only other option for Soldans would be to use these and swoop down, and all they would need to do actually is come down and try and come up the back here, which is also in itself undefended relatively, and they would meet this commander here and they would kill it, especially if they use levelers and shellers. And then we do see the ants, levelers and shellers now moving out, deciding, yep, we have enough dudes here, we can start forming our lines, we can get ready to annihilate this base, which is being awkward in terms of sending out the odd unit at a time just to test us. But as I say, these walls are going to go down very quickly, especially with these shellers getting stuff shooting all over the place really, and these factories a little bit too late, especially with the build order. And all of these lasers are going to go down, the metal is going to go down, the econ is going to plummet. And in a few very short seconds, these factories are all going to get destroyed one by one, and at that point W12 has no choice but to retreat to their commander's new enclave on the other side of the planet. As I say, pretty much all of the metal extractors here are gone, yet the energy field still survives, although again that'll disappear in about 30 seconds time as soon as these ants and levelers start moving forward, in which they do. And here goes the energy now. Some of these factories still here, but no substantial defense because this lot are all anti-air. And we almost have a GG from W12, who's almost conceding defeat here, saying this is a lost battle, because maybe they realise at this point that if Soldans manages to do that, and all they have is this small base here, they've got a lot of ground to catch up, especially if they are going to equal and outdo the military of Soldans. So maybe at this point it is more a matter of time as to how Soldans approaches this final assault, although they do actually need to find W12. At this point, I don't think radar coverage has the base in range. But as I say, with the intelligence network they have, they can almost assume the base is going to be over here somewhere. And all you'd need to do, because we're playing Gentleman's Rules, is scout and look at where there's a good concentration of metal sites, which is right here. So again, that'll be an easy picking for Soldans should any necessary death be due. That a couple of energy just sitting around. Indeed, Soldans is where are you hiding? So this is a game of cat and mouse at this point in time. Although it's yes, it is. It's definitely going to be a game of cat and mouse. All of these are going to spread out here. Make sure that's clear. At which point they're going to start sweeping down, and again, W12 is going to be right in the firing line. All they really need to do now is get some fabricators out and get some of these metal on here, and they can maybe start to fight back. But they need to do that rapidly as a top priority at this point. And completely, I'd say, well, almost completely. I mean, one factory producing ants at a time is fine, as long as your econs can support it, but honestly, at this point, the top priority really should be to get some of those metal sites to get the mass production, because if you know your enemy has got some mass production and you don't, and your base is pretty much dead, then you're delaying the inevitable, really, if I'm honest. So as I say, all of these really need to start producing maybe one fabricator, and then you can get 4 metal sites going up at once. But this radar here is going to find that there's nothing over here that's worthy of any time or effort. We haven't got any T2 radar anywhere else apart from at the North Pole. It's going to reach down to maybe about here. So just out of range, I shouldn't wonder. And there goes the moon. With a transparent triangle. Woohoo! We love transparent triangles. Now we still have the build queue here for all of these hummingbirds. I'm not sure why the hummingbirds are still on a build queue. Sort of wasting resources when they could be building scouts maybe to get the intel faster in this area covered, rather than giving W12 the potential time. And W12 actually has disconnected, which is strange. Maybe they've lost connection, maybe they'll reconnect. I will go and check just to get back to you, I've just gone on to a chat between W12 and Soldans, and there is an effective GG there from W12. I highly doubt they will be reconnecting. I think they have conceded the game. This is a win to Soldans in the ladder. So other than that, that is the game. So I guess we could just review this at this point. With what we have remaining. I mean, we have all of these build orders here to sort of, at this point, both players are idle. Soldans is also in an external chat with W12, so nothing major will be happening. W12 is pretty much saying, I don't have many factories against your factories. Soldans is saying, I have probably the same number of T1 factories as you, but I do have T2 as well. But other than that, W12 is feeling rather apprehensive about any potential winning of this game. So as I say, it's probably a GG there. Other than that, you know, in summary, I think if these had all worked on fabricators and getting all of these metal sites here soon, you know, quickly, there's a bunch of metal here. In fact, there's an overabundance of metal, and you could really start spamming out maybe even 5 more T1 factories and really getting the ants rolling out very rapidly. But other than that, I can't really see any other way that W12 could have pulled this back, especially if all of these tier 2 factories are still producing. And all they'd need to do is just an inadvertent scout to come down here, and then all hell would descend on W12's base. So other than that, I think that is the end. In fact, just briefly what we see here, just to catalyse W12's defeat for the screenshot for the ladder evidence. We've got a lot of scouts just came over here and a T2 radar, which is now rather pointless. But we do have a lot of levelers descending on this base, and they're going to make very short work of this commander, and they're going to sweep this up nice and easily. In fact, I'm surprised we don't have all of them. Yes, we do, just in case. But other than that, here they go. Here go the factories. Very shortly. Looks like they're going to try and go in for a surround, taking his time to make this as fun as possible. In fact, no, those shellers are going to start moving in, and no, they're going to get pulled away out of range. All those hummingbirds are just going to keep swarming around. and in they go. Here comes the push now. The commander is in great danger, and they are going to get annihilated here. And there is the game. That is it. Thank you for joining me for another Shoutcast. And I've got many more to come for you, along with some gameplay that I actually do with some of the people in the forums. That's first-person gameplay, not shoutcasted. And other than that, thank you again for watching. Do make sure you stick around and subscribe, because as I say, there's a lot more coming. And do share with your friends if they are interested in Planetary Annihilation. I'm trying to be a sort of one-stop shop, as it were, for a Planetary Annihilation. So get this channel out there, folks, because in effect, I'm serving you guys, especially if you can't pick up the alpha and you need news about this game. This is where you come. Anyway, do drop a like or a comment or ask questions. I'll be more than happy to answer them. Thanks again for watching. Have a nice day. Come back soon for more Planetary Annihilation.